Okay, hey everyone. Today we're going to be playing a song that's in the key of D, which has a D, an A, and a G chord. And it doesn't really matter what the song is because a lot of songs use the same chord progression, but we'll kind of maybe use popular one. Like a copyright infringement, but here we go. Now I'm using a looper to help demonstrate something here. We'll be learning how to do some of these things in this lesson. Okay, so again, this is in the key of D, and so we're going to be using D, A, and G. So let's take a look at those chords. We have D, obviously, in the key of D, and so let's take a look at that. And to play this chord, we're going to be using our first finger on the second fret of the G string, which is our third string, second fret. We're going to be putting our third finger on the third fret of the B string, our second string. And we're going to put our second finger on the second fret of the high E. There's our D chord. Alright, and we also play the open D string as we play this. So we strum 4 strings when we play it. And we don't play the 2 bass strings, the E and the A string. Alright, so the next chord we're going to play is the A chord. So let's take a look at that. So with the A chord, we have 3 fingers that are playing the frets on the second frets of the D string, the G string, and the B string. And we can use different fingerings as far as which 3 fingers we use, and there are some little tricks you can do to maybe squeeze more fingers in if you need to. So we'll take a look at some of the different ways to play this. The main goal is to get 3 fingers on the second frets of those 3 strings, the D, G, and B. So we'll start out with the most common way. We're going to put our first finger on the second fret of the D, our second finger on the second fret of the G, and our third finger is going to squeeze in there on the second fret of the B. And then we play the high E with an open string, and the A string is open. So it may be easier to use your pinky to get that to fit in more easily. So to do that, we'd use our second finger on the second fret of the D, our third finger on the second fret of the G, and then our pinky goes in the second fret of the B. Now another trick sometimes people do is they sneak their first finger behind the other 2. So to do this, we would put our second finger on the second fret of the D, and we straddle the G and put our third finger on the second fret of the B. Now the G is open right now. We put our first finger behind those 2 on the second fret of the G. We're still playing the second fret of those 3 strings. So there's an A, and we have the other 2 strings that are open. And we don't play the low bass E. We can though, because you have a couple of E's in this chord, so it's not a problem if you hit it, but we try to get the bassist note to be an A. Alright, so the next chord we're going to play in this song, in the key of D, is the G chord. So let's take a look at that. So with the G chord, again, we have a couple of different ways to play it, but basically we want to get the frets that we have displayed here to be played, so let's do that. So one way, kind of the way that I learned when I first learned this, was I put my second finger on the low bass E on the 3rd fret, and then my index finger would go on the A string, 2nd fret, and my ring finger goes on the 3rd fret of the high E, high pitch E. Now you can play these with different fingers and get the same sound. In this case, I'd use my ring finger on the low bass E. My second finger would go on the 2nd fret of the A, and my pinky goes on the 3rd fret of the high E. Alright. Back on the first way of playing, this lends itself to being played with an alternate way of playing, where you start off with your second finger on the 3rd fret of the low bass E, your index finger on the 2nd fret of the A. Then your ring finger would go on the 3rd fret of the B string, and your pinky goes underneath it on the 3rd fret of the high E. So that has a slightly different sound, and what we're doing there is, back on the diagram here, instead of playing the B string open, we are playing a D note instead on the 3rd fret. So that's just another way of playing it. Alright, so then to play these, we're going to start back with the D chord and strum a couple of times on the D, and then we'll strum a couple of times on the G, and I'm sorry, a couple times on the A, and then a couple times on the G. Actually, 4 times on the G. So here we are. We're going to play the D. We're going to strum it twice, then switch to an A, and then switch to a G, and we strum that 4 times. We can maybe make the strumming so it's down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. Alright, so that's what I was playing when I first started, and I'm going to record that again on my looper, and then we'll look at some ideas of what you can do when someone's playing this and you want to add something to it instead of just playing the same chords. But of course you want to be able to play the chords first, so practice those chords and get good at that. So here we go. I'm going to play the chords and record it into my looper. Okay, now it's in my looper, and what we want to do is we want to take advantage of playing the notes in the D scale. Alright, so what are we doing there? We're playing some notes on the D scale. Let's learn how to play those. Alright? So to play notes in the D scale, we're going to use a little trick that takes advantage of the shapes of our fingers. We're going to use all 4 fingers. Each finger is going to take a turn in playing notes in the scale. And we're going to play the scale 4 notes at a time, and so we break it up into 2 parts basically, but each part is going to be identical as far as the shape. We're going to play everything on 1 string for starters, and we'll learn how to adjust that. But this is kind of the simplest way to learn how to play a scale initially, I would say. So we're going to assign a note to each of our fingers, and our large fingers, whenever we go to use a large finger, we'll skip a fret from the previous one. And then when we get to our pinky, that will not skip a fret, it'll go to the very next fret. So we're going to start on a D note, And the best D note would probably be the D string. So we assign the open D string note to our index finger as a starting point. So we're not really pressing a fret here, but we still mentally assign it to that finger. So we play that note, and then we're going to play the next note with our middle finger. So we skip a fret. So we skip that first fret and we go to the second fret. Now our next finger is a large finger also, so we skip that fret and we go to the fourth fret. And then we are going to play the next fret with our pinky, so we don't skip a fret, we go just to the very next fret. Now we're on the fifth fret. Alright, so the next half of the scale is going to be started with our index finger, so we consider that a large finger. So that will skip a fret and go to the next fret past that. So we're going to go to the seventh fret with our index finger. We play that note, and we skip a fret because we're going to use our middle finger next. So now we're on the ninth fret, and now we're going to skip a fret with our ring finger. Now we're on the 11th fret, and now we're going to land on the 12th fret with our pinky. So we want to practice that. And get that down so you can play that. You eventually want to play it backwards and forwards. Alright. Now let's take a look at the notes we're playing when we play that. Alright, so when we play this scale, we are playing a D, and then an E, then an F sharp, then a G, an A, B, C sharp, and D. And if you play it, you're getting the do, re, mi. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So you have automatic feedback. If you're not playing something correctly, you'll hear it. Right? So you want to play it, you'll know that you've played something incorrectly. Alright. So after you've played that a few times and you understand how it sounds and how to play it, remembering that you skip frets with each of your large fingers and not skip a fret with the pinky, we can make use of some other patterns. Before I move on to the other patterns, I want to explain something. When we skip a fret, this is referred to as a whole step. So when we play a scale, we have a whole step, and then when we don't skip a fret and we just play the very next fret, that's a half step. Whole step, half step. Alright. And then when we go to the next half of the scale, we have to do a whole step, and then we continue on with whole step, half step. So we have two whole step, half steps separated by a whole step, half step, half step. All right. Now, and you can rewind this video to review that if you want. In British terms, we call them tones and semitones. So, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Do that again. So, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. All right. So we have those notes that we're playing. We're playing D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. All right. So when we want to add some notes, as someone's playing a scale, or someone's playing some chords, you can play those notes. What we can also do, instead of having to play them all on one string, is we can use some notes in a neighboring string. So let me swap over to this. All right. So when you play this particular scale, as you play that second note, make a mental note of where that is, because when you come back to the next string below, you'll start on that same fret. So as we play this particular scale, on the second fret, is where our second finger lands, just by coincidence. So we're going to start our second string, our next string, in this case it's our third string, on the second fret of the third string, and play that same pattern with the large fingers. So we have skip, skip, don't skip, and we just go to the next string, which has that skip built in. Something that happens quite often on the guitar, there's only one exception really, is when you want to play something on a string, on a higher pitched string, you can, if you have 5 frets or more, you can back up 5 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and have the same note. That's why when we tune our guitar, that we take advantage of that. We use the 5th fret to tune most of our strings. The one exception is the B string, where we tune the 4th fret of the G to the B. Alright, so knowing all this, we can make use of a simpler pattern. We're going to take out the last D because that's really a repeat. It's an octave higher, but it's a repeat of the note D. So we'll take that out. We're going to take out the C sharp, and we'll take out the G. And what we're left with are notes that make up what's called the pentatonic scale. Penta meaning 5, tonic 5 notes. And having this scale makes it easier to play because there's less things to remember. And it doesn't clash as much with some of the other chords that might be played. Now what I want to point out to you that you can remember the shape if you think of it as like a little mini guitar. If you think of the guitar laying down, I'll show you what I mean. See my guitar, and you have those notes going across, the 3 notes going across, and then you have the 2 notes that make up the kind of the body of the guitar. So I call this the mini guitar. And this shape is in more than one place. Just like you can play the D scale in more than one place, you can play this shape in more than one place. So when I was playing this earlier, I started playing it also with a D note that starts on the B string. I'm going to change the color of that one and show you what that would look like. So here's my D note on the B string, and I'm going to play those same 3 notes that go along with it, and then we go down 1 string and play 2 more, and there's our little guitar, mini guitar shape. On the A string, we also have a D note when we go to tune our guitar. It's on the 5th fret. So if we play that, we can play across, and we can get a little mini guitar there. What's interesting is when we play a mini guitar and we finish it, usually just below that mini guitar is another D note. Now the B string caused us to have to shift a little, but on this one we can start another mini guitar. I'll make it in yellow. Starting here, not sure how well this shows up, but we have the beginning of a mini guitar. And again, because of the B string, there's a little bit of a shift to play the next couple of notes. All right, and let's do one more. I'll do this in the light blue. So we have another D note on the 10th fret of the E string is a D, and we can do the same thing. So I have all these little places where we can play our little mini guitar, and actually as you start to play these, you can recognize some other patterns that go vertically on the string. So when we have this A string, or this E string, high E, everything on the high E can be repeated on the low E. So we could play these same notes on the low E. And now you have another little pattern that you can use vertically. But we can save that for another day. But that's what we have. So we could play, I'm going to use my looper now to just kind of play what I had earlier. And then can just start playing some of these notes. D on the A string, which is the 5th fret. Use my little mini guitar. And again, when you finish with one mini guitar, you have another one that sits just underneath it. Here's a D note here. I can play the D note on the E, the low bass E. Again, there's another D note that sits right underneath that, and I can put that in there. So let's put that in, we'll make it purple, I guess. So a D sits right underneath that mini guitar we just played. I don't have enough frets showing, but you just play straight up into the 16th fret. Alright, so you could play that here if you had a cutaway, or you could just play again on one of the other little mini guitar shapes. So that's what I wanted to show you today. You know, you have your basic strumming and those 3 chords, and then understanding how to play a scale in general, how to break that scale up onto 2 strings, and how to make it even simpler by playing a pentatonic scale. So hopefully that all makes sense and is helpful to allow you to maybe improvise a little more. If you liked what you saw, please click on the like button below, and hopefully subscribe or share this with others and maybe motivate them to subscribe as well. So thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any questions. If I get enough of the same question, I'll do a video based on what those questions are, but I'll be sure to answer yours. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.